Sometimes you have to lose everything to realize how strong you really are. I remember the hospital room as if it were carved into my memory. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly, reflecting off the sterile white walls. I gripped the edge of the chair, my phone pressed tightly to my ear. "Why are you calling me now?" "I'm busy," my husband's voice said, flat and clipped. I froze. My contractions had started hours ago, and I was scared, alone, and desperate. I need you here. Please." "It's happening," I whispered, my voice trembling. There was a pause. Then the line went dead. I sank into the chair. My hospital gown felt like a shroud, my shaking hands betraying my fear. No one talks about the humiliation of being ignored when you're most vulnerable, but it's real. The betrayal cuts deeper than pain. I glanced around the room. The nurses were calm, moving like they'd seen it all 1,000 times. I envied them. They didn't need anyone to show up for them. They had their duty, their strength. My husband had promised me he'd be there for this. I had believed him when he said, "I'll never leave you alone." But here I was alone, with nothing but the sterile smell of disinfectant and the metallic taste of anxiety. The irony hit me. I had given everything to this marriage. My time, my trust, my career compromises to support him. I had believed in him, even when my instincts whispered doubts. And yet, in the moment I needed him most, he was absent. A nurse knocked gently. "Are you okay, Mrs. Carter?" she asked. Her voice was soft, professional. I nodded, forcing a smile. I'll be fine. Just help me through this." She adjusted my checked my vitals. Her touch was small but steady, a quiet reminder that strength sometimes comes from unexpected places. Not from the people who claim to love you, but from those who show up, even without promises. I looked at the clock. Minutes stretched like hours. I clenched my fists. A mix of fear and rage boiled in my chest. How could someone I trusted so completely abandon me when I was most in need? The betrayal didn't just sting, it seared. And then it hit me. The thought that sparked the first ember of fire inside me. I cannot rely on him. I have to rely on myself. I breathed in, slow and steady. My body ached, my mind raced, but somewhere in the chaos, a small, defiant voice whispered, "Enough. You deserve better than this." That whisper became a promise to myself. A promise that no one, not even the person I had called my partner, would make me feel powerless again. I looked around the room one last time. The hospital smells, the soft beeping of machines, the quiet footsteps of nurses. They were all reminders that life goes on. Pain passes. Betrayal stings, but it can't define me. I made a choice that day. Not just to survive the labor, not just to bring my child into the world, but to reclaim myself. To demand respect, dignity, and truth. And in that small, sterile hospital room, alone but alive, I realized something important. Strength isn't given. It's discovered. I remember the first time I really believed in us. We were in our tiny apartment in downtown Chicago, sunlight spilling through the blinds, the smell of coffee lingering in the kitchen. I had just gotten promoted, and he smiled like he was proud, but I still remember the words that stuck with me. "I don't know what I'd do without you. You make everything better." I believed him. I gave up weekends with friends, late nights at work I loved, even small personal goals, just to build a life around him. I planned dinners, managed our bills, reminded him of appointments. I even put my career on hold when he needed to chase a new opportunity. I thought love meant sacrifice. But love isn't supposed to make you invisible. That night in the hospital, I kept thinking about the texts I'd discovered last month. The ones he deleted quickly, the ones I almost didn't notice. Casual, flippant messages to someone I didn't know, saying things that should have been mine to hear first. "Can't wait to see you tonight." The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was calculated, silent, humiliating. I recalled the confrontation in our kitchen. I had held the phone in my shaking hands and asked, "Is this true?" His face went pale. He tried to laugh it off, said, "You're overreacting." That moment replayed in my head like a broken film strip. I'd never felt smaller, more foolish. And yet, somewhere under that hurt, a fire ignited. I realized something crucial. I had spent years molding myself around him, bending to make him comfortable. And all that bending had nearly broken me. But if I could survive labor alone, if I could hold myself together when every nerve screamed for help, then maybe I could survive this too. I started to think clearly for the first time in months. Lawyers, accounts, evidence, conversations recorded in my memory. I wouldn't lash out blindly. I would plan. I would move quietly but firmly. I wouldn't let his betrayal define me. For the first time, I felt power. Not the fake kind that comes from anger, but the kind that comes from self-reliance. I wasn't just hurt, I was awake. I was seeing clearly. That night, lying in the hospital bed, I whispered to myself, I am done shrinking. I am done being invisible. I will stand. And when I do, it won't just be about proving him wrong. It will be about proving to myself that I am enough. The fire was small, but it was there, glowing under the exhaustion and fear. And I knew one thing. This was only the beginning. The next morning, I left the hospital with my baby in my arms. The room still smelled faintly of antiseptic, and every beep of the monitors seemed to echo in my head. I didn't look back at the empty chair where he should have been. I didn't call him. Not yet. Instead, I made a list. Names, dates, phone numbers, conversations. Every instance where he had dismissed me, lied, or hidden the truth. I kept it in a small notebook I carried everywhere, my evidence, my shield. The first stop was my lawyer's office. It was in a gray brick building, the kind that smelled faintly of old coffee and polished floors. I sat across from Ms. Ramirez, who listened carefully as I explained everything. Marriage, betrayal, abandonment, the financial mismanagement, the lies. Her eyes didn't blink in shock or pity. She just nodded and started outlining steps. Documentation is everything, she said. Bank statements, emails, texts, receipts. We'll need everything concrete. Don't delete a thing, and no confrontations yet. We do this strategically. Her calm certainty was a bomb. I felt a flicker of power. I had thought I was powerless, but here was someone helping me turn everything I had into something that could protect me and my child. Back at home, I organized my files, took screenshots of messages, backed up emails, and made copies of financial statements. Each piece of paper, each phone record, felt like armor. The apartment smelled faintly of my coffee and baby wipes, and for the first time, it felt like a command center, not just a home. I started small, calling banks to understand joint accounts, and checking the fine print on investments we'd made together. The world of numbers and contracts that had always intimidated me suddenly felt like territory I could own. I didn't just want to survive, I wanted clarity, and then control. I also reached out to friends I hadn't spoken to in months. Support mattered. Not pity, but shared strength. And slowly, their words reminded me I wasn't alone, even if he had made me feel like I was. By the end of the week, I had a plan, a map. I wasn't lashing out in anger. I wasn't collapsing in heartbreak. I was calculating, deliberate, prepared. I was turning betrayal into strategy. And in the quiet moments, when the baby slept and the apartment was still, I whispered to myself, he won't see me coming. And when I do, it will be on my terms. This was no longer just about him. It was about me. About proving, first and foremost, that I am unshakable. The day I finally saw him face to face, I felt a strange mix of dread and power. The coffee shop smelled like burnt espresso and pastry sugar, and the chatter of strangers seemed distant, as if I were in a bubble of purpose. He walked in, smiling that same practiced grin, and for a moment, I almost felt that old pull, the one that made me believe in him despite everything. But I caught myself. My hand stayed on the table, my phone tucked safely in my bag, my notebook close, ready. "Hi," he said, trying casual. "You wanted to meet?" I nodded, keeping my voice calm but steady. "Yes. We need to talk about everything." His grin faltered slightly, just a fraction. I noticed it. It gave me a small rush of confidence. I didn't think this was necessary," he started, leaning back. I leaned forward. "You ignored me when I needed you most. You betrayed me emotionally and financially. You left me alone in the hospital. That's not just careless. That's cruel." His face twisted, almost in anger, almost in guilt. "It's complicated. You're overreacting." Stop," I said firmly. The word wasn't loud, but it carried weight. "I'm done listening to excuses. I've documented everything. I've spoken to a lawyer. And I'm not here to fight. I'm here to make one thing clear. I will not be invisible anymore. I will not be dismissed." He looked away, shifting in his chair. "You're taking this too far." "I thought we could." I shook my head. "No, this isn't about reconciliation. It's about accountability. You made your choices. Now I'm making mine." There was silence, heavy and tense. I noticed the small details, the condensation on his coffee cup, the way his hands trembled slightly, the way the sunlight hit his hair at just the wrong angle. Those tiny things made me realize he had no control here. I did. For the first time in years, I wasn't negotiating love, forgiveness, or approval. I was asserting reality. I was reclaiming my dignity. I left that coffee shop feeling lighter, even though the fight wasn't over. I had planted the seed. I was awake, aware, and unstoppable. And he had no words left that could shake me. In that moment, I understood something profound. The confrontation itself wasn't victory. The victory was that I could stand calm, composed, and unafraid in front of someone who had tried to break me. And the fire inside me burned brighter than ever. After that coffee shop meeting, he didn't give up. He tried the subtle attacks, the ones that sting quietly. A mutual friend texted me. "He's saying things about you, that you left him and the baby alone." I felt the familiar twist of hurt, but this time it didn't break me. I remembered the hospital room, the silence, the empty chair. I remembered the fire I had ignited inside myself. And I reminded myself, truth matters more than gossip. I responded carefully. I will not engage in rumors. Let's focus on facts when necessary. Next came the emails. Passive-aggressive, trying to manipulate my decisions about the baby, about finances, about even the small, everyday choices he had no right to control. Each message made my jaw tighten, but I didn't reply impulsively. I saved everything, every word, for the day it mattered. Then the social escalation. Invitations I wasn't included in, comments he made at family gatherings, half-smiles and whispers aimed to make me feel small. People he thought would pressure me into giving up my plan. But I refused to shrink. I attended family events on my terms, confident, composed, polite, but untouchable. Even his lawyer tried to intimidate me. "You might want to reconsider your approach," he said. "This could get complicated." I smiled politely and replied, "I'm prepared. Complicated doesn't scare me." At home, I kept my notebook by my side, files neatly organized, and my phone locked. Each piece of evidence I had gathered felt like a brick in the wall I was building around my dignity. Not revenge. Not malice. Protection. Truth. I began to feel something I hadn't felt in years. Power, grounded in clarity and self-respect. Every attempt he made to unsettle me only confirmed how far I had come. I wasn't reacting blindly. I was observing, learning, strengthening myself. Late at night, when the baby slept and the apartment was quiet, I would sit on the couch, notebook in hand, sipping tea. The glow from the city outside filtered through the blinds. I realized I wasn't just surviving. I was reclaiming my life, moment by moment, choice by choice. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a calm certainty. No amount of manipulation, whispers, or excuses could shake me. I was standing in the middle of the storm, unbroken, and entirely in control. I had learned a crucial truth. The world tests you not to destroy you, but to show you the strength you already have. And I was ready to prove it, to myself and to him. It all came to a head one morning in the lawyer's office. Sunlight cut through the blinds in sharp lines, highlighting every small imperfection in the room, just like my life had felt for so long. But now, I felt clarity, not chaos. Ms. Ramirez laid out the documents I had gathered over weeks. Texts, emails, bank statements, evidence of emotional abandonment and financial mismanagement. "This," she said, tapping the thick stack of papers, "is undeniable. You have every right to claim what belongs to you, and to your child. You also have the moral high ground." I ran my fingers over the edges of the papers, feeling the weight of truth in my hands. For years, I had doubted myself, questioned my instincts, and let excuses cloud reality. But here, in black and white, was validation. The confrontation that had felt like a spark in the coffee shop now became a wildfire. When I delivered the facts, calmly, meticulously, without raising my voice, he had no words. He tried to explain, to justify, to charm, but I had nothing left to prove to him. "You can't rewrite what you've done," I said quietly, looking him in the eye. "You can only face it. And now I am." There was a long silence. I noticed the small things again, the crease in his forehead, the nervous tap of his fingers on the table. He was flustered because for once the illusion of control had shattered. In the following weeks, the legal process moved forward. Agreements were signed, finances were separated, responsibilities clarified. Friends and family who had been unsure before now saw the truth, acknowledged it. I didn't seek revenge, but I had ensured justice, not just for me, but for the life I was building with my child. The most important moment came when I finally visited the hospital again. Not for him, not for a confrontation, but for closure. I walked past the empty chair where he should have been, past the same fluorescent lights, and felt peace. The The betrayal that had once cut me so deeply now seemed distant, almost powerless against the strength I had built. And in that quiet reflection, I realized the full truth. Dignity isn't something you demand from someone else. It's something you claim for yourself. It's the quiet fire that no one can extinguish. I had lost, I had feared, I had been humiliated. And yet here I stood, stronger than ever. Not broken, not bitter, but undeniably whole. Months had passed since the confrontation, since the legal agreements, since the heavy weight of betrayal had first landed on my shoulders. Yet, I still felt the echo of that night in the hospital, the fear, the loneliness, the disbelief. Only now it didn't scare me. It fueled me. He tried again subtly in social circles. "She's changed," I heard him whisper. "She's different." I smiled to myself. Yes, I was different. I was not the woman who had begged him to answer her calls. I was not the woman who had sacrificed her sense of self for promises that were empty. I was grounded, focused, and clear-eyed. And no whisper, no manipulation could reach me. At home, I rearranged the apartment. The small things mattered. Keys always on the hook, files stacked neatly, baby's clothes folded precisely in the drawer. Every detail was a reminder that control now resided with me. Not with him, not with anyone else. My life, my space, my rules. One afternoon, I received a message from him, hesitant, almost vulnerable. "Can we talk?" I paused, heart steady, coffee in hand. I could have answered impulsively, let old anger flare. But I didn't. I chose clarity over reaction. I wrote back, "There's nothing left to talk about. I've claimed what is mine. I've claimed my peace. I suggest you do the same." The silence that followed was telling. No excuses, no gaslighting, no guilt trips. Just acknowledgement that I was untouchable now. Not because I had power over him, but because I had power over myself. That night, I sat by the window, baby asleep in my arms, city lights flickering across the skyline. I thought about the hospital room, the empty chair, the phone call that changed everything. I thought about my own hands, holding that tiny life, and how much they had held already: pain, fear, betrayal, and now strength. I realized then that survival was not enough. True strength is rising after betrayal, planning with precision, standing with dignity, and never shrinking again. I had done it. I had become the woman I was meant to be, resilient, determined, unapologetically me. And in the quiet of that moment, I whispered to myself, sometimes you have to lose everything to find who you really are. Only this time, it wasn't a whisper of doubt. It was a roar of certainty. It was quiet that morning, the kind of quiet that feels heavy and full of possibilities all at once. I sat on the balcony, the city below me humming softly, coffee in hand, baby sleeping beside me. The world felt expansive and calm, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was just surviving. I thought about him, about the hospital, the betrayal, the endless excuses. I didn't feel anger anymore. Not the sharp, consuming kind. Instead, I felt something stronger: clarity. Respect for myself, for the choices I had made, and for the power I had discovered in my own resilience. I remembered the first weeks, the tears, the endless phone calls to lawyers, the nights of sleepless anxiety. I remembered how small I had felt, how invisible. But then I remembered the fire, the spark that refused to die, the quiet voice whispering enough. It led me here, to a place I could never have imagined months ago. Peace without compromise, dignity without apology, and strength without dependency. I realized something important. Revenge is loud and fleeting. Justice is quiet and enduring. And dignity? Dignity is the kind of power no betrayal can ever take away. I looked down at the baby in my arms, tiny fingers curling around mine, and I knew that everything I had endured, the humiliation, the abandonment, the lies, had built a foundation not just for me, but for the life I was creating. I wasn't just standing on my own. I was rising for both of us. And in that stillness, I whispered aloud, a soft affirmation that surprised even me. I am enough. I am strong. I am free. Sometimes, it takes losing everything to find your true strength. And sometimes, the people who were meant to hurt you become the ones who show you how far you've truly come. I closed my eyes and let the morning sun warm my face. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. And I knew this truth would stay with me, long after the echoes of betrayal faded. The power I sought outside was inside me all along.